All right, everyone. Very excited. We are here in the final game of the elimination. We have now watched Ty Bertrand play John Lewis in a unbelievably close game last round. Tyler squeaking out a victory after a dozen hands of power pack and just barely getting one of those venture wins at the very end. Unbelievably close game. Phil, who's been my co-commentator for most of the rounds, has also won his track. So we're going to go to this final match, which is Phil the King Keffer rematching Tyler. If you'll remember in video one of this tournament, Ty Bertrand beat Phil in the Swiss. They now meet again at the very last game of the event, and this is going to be to decide the entire tournament. Can Ty do it again, or has Phil learned enough about his deck to bring it around? So with me doing the commentary is special guest commentator David McMillan. How you doing, Dave?
Doing well. Looking forward to some exciting tactical overpower from two of our best players.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's go over to the game and see what we got going on here. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so on the right of your screen is Tyler Bertrand of the Bertrand Dynasty and Phil the King Keffer, part of Team Elite. As you can see by his custom-made sleeves, Marcel the Goat and Phil the King Keffer have come up with a logo that is both a goat wearing a crown. So both of their fun little nicknames. They're going to go right into it and draw their hand. Phil has duped on a 7 power card. I didn't see Ty dupe, and I haven't seen him pull one of his artifacts into his hand. Dave, did you have the pleasure of seeing either one of these decks? I got to watch this matchup in round one already.
No, so I didn't get to play or see either of these decks. I do believe Tyler's playing either a variant or the exact same deck he was playing in Peace Bridge 2024, which
Yep. So
featured
he's
Brian.
switched out. He switched out Scarlet Witch and put in the X babies to give his other
Interesting.
slot some survivability.
I do really like that decision in terms of X Baby's inherent and also the heat that they can throw. I'm not sure if he's using no activators, but I think that's a card that should be seeing more play. The little rogue.
For sure. I mean, the meta definitely has shifted to about 40-60. So Tyler, we're getting a little glare, but Tyler's got a 7 any power on the X babies that can be used for offense or defense, and he's placed an ally, which is the fighting ally that has Doctor Strange on it with Wong. 5 or less to use, acts as a 3 fighting attack. Allies must be followed up by a teammate. He's also over on his home base, his hands blocking it, but he's got the 4 intellect attack from Mephisto. So an interesting way this can play. You're going to see Tyler wants to get out his cards to shift all the attacks to Grunge, to use Grunge as a void, an intellect icon, and draw, and to just defend any multi-power hit that comes through. And then what he's also going to want to do is eventually, since he's placed that 4 on Odin's Vault, he can play the 3 that's placed to Grunge, which allows him to follow it up with a teammate special. He could actually play that 4 from the home base, which would then allow, if it's successful, Grunge to heal all the hits on him. So a very clever way he's trying to combine the mechanics of these characters to keep Grunge alive.
Now, interesting play here. The king stays in the battle and throws Stonewall at X babies. That's a target character cannot attack or play any specials unless they discard 2 cards per card they play. So testing, I think, Tyler's defense a little bit there and also looking to exhaust his battle site.
I
It
mean,
looks
I
like
I think exhaust is exactly right. I think if I'm Phil Keffer in this situation, seeing him use his full avoid on the very first card that's played, I think Phil is ecstatic seeing that happen.
Tyler goes and plays a Dark Beast activator.
I think it's a post.
A post, maybe? Oh, you're right, post. The 4 make additional. That's a 4 multi power attack against Beast.
Now, I've noticed with Ty pretty much this entire day, we've talked about it a little bit in the commentary. He's pretty aggressively going for the negator the entire time.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to have the negator have the ability to negate any of his shifting tricks. He can play the shift. Mephisto has the card that shifts anything from him to another target. He's also, we know from his earlier match, he's playing cannon fodder from Onslaught Citadel as his one per deck. And then Grunge has his own special, Danger Seeker. Danger Seeker has to be played offensively. So he really wants to get rid of that negator to make sure he can get those hits over to Grunge. If somebody manages to take out Mephisto and he can't keep that thing he's doing going, that's going to be the linchpin that takes his deck out. Phil Keffer, on the other hand, he's really going to be looking to just keep his large power cards placed, get some teamworks with some follow ups, and set himself up where if he needs to, he can use those power cards, those universe cards offensively to make some big hits to get over the 9 or less that Silver Sable brings. Or also, Dave, as you're seeing, both Team Elites played. They did what I did with the Cyclops deck. They both played Captain Universe on the Armory.
I really do love that play just because there's a lot of specials that are not one per deck where that 1 point can make a huge difference. And then also can cut through acrobatics and other anti special card lockouts.
And I think
Uh,
I was using it to make the Cyclops 9s a 10 to get them over the top of the 9 or less. But their mentality, I believe what they really want to do, I think Phil said this earlier, is get those white tigers to be a 7. Most people are using the strange avoids from the back, and they want to be able to math out when they can throw it as a 7, make sure those 9 or less don't avoid it, and that the acrobatics, it can even cut through that if they need it to.
Now, anytime you see Onslaught Citadel, you have to know that Venture Tuck is a primary feature of the deck. I really do like what Grunge is doing here in this spot with his inherent. Sorry, let me pause. Uh, from the battle site, Nightcrawler DZ target hero may not attack or be attacked on X babies. And this
Yeah,
might be a
again,
real challenge for Tyler here, given that we saw him use that pure void from Holocaust early in the match, early in this battle.
and I think that's exactly what Phil wants to do here. I think Phil just wants to lock up 10 Venture or give Tyler the Sophie's choice, so to speak, of either letting X babies, either using a premier defense to avoid it to keep that offense there, or just giving up the 10 Venture. So Ty does exactly what he said. He plays the 3. It enables him to play a teammate special. He follow ups with the 4. Now, in Ty's mind, this is going to put a lot of KO pressure on the Beast, but it does unfortunately not leave him in a position where he can heal with that 4 later, which is a very, very cool combo that Ty's come up with. I like that a lot.
Now, it'll be interesting to see if Phil has the actual defense in that elite overpower sleeved card, and whether it's perhaps a prime defense out of Wondergore Mountain that he doesn't want to use, or if he's just taking his
I
time
think he's
picking.
let it, based on the way he touched it, I think he's let it hit.
Okay,
I'm guessing here what Phil's trying to decide is
can
Phil
he
can, he's
risk
got
letting
one
this
card
die?
in Ty's hand and he's locked out the X baby. So Phil's probably saying to himself, I can win this venture and I can get a bunch of hits on Mephisto. Um, and let Tyler throw the hit back. He's going to risk losing Beast, but he also could put 2 hits on Mephisto, and then if he wants to, he could get that multi-power hit on Grunge. And that's kind of, I really think
Yeah.
that's, if he can get that multi-power hit on Grunge now, which for those who don't know, Grunge's inherent ability reads he has to have a multi-power hit to be KO'd. He would still be susceptible to absolute KO, or as we call it, dead is dead. But if Phil gets a couple of hits out here, he can really paint Mephisto and make it so any of the shifting nonsense that were to pop up would be going to a Grunge that already has a multi-power hit. It would really kind of take a lot of the steam out of the strategy that Tyler's trying to put together here. So I
Now
think we're just,
this is interesting because my opinion of Phil is that he will concede here because I don't know that he's going to take the tactical risk of gambling that Tyler kills Beast this early. Uh, I would say, and this is based off of my own opinion and experience, if this was Marcel, I think Marcel would be more apt to gamble this year and to see what happens. Maybe I'm incorrect. This is absolutely fascinating. So exactly what you said, Joe. He is painting up Mephisto with that 12 venture.
Ty has his Sentinels activator. He's
Master
gonna
Mold.
master mold the 6. So now he's open. So Ty's
No, no,
got a.
I think he still has one card in hand.
That's what I'm saying. He's got the option. He can throw this card. If that's a kill shot for Beast, I think it's almost certainly will have just been thrown by now. I don't think there'd even be anything to think about.
Yeah,
I don't think Ty's got a realistic. He's got to assume there's a defense in hand. Whether it can block the card in Ty's hand, we don't know. But Ty's also doing the calculus of like,
the venture.
do I want to let that 3 multi hit Grunge? That's his entire deck is built around not letting that happen. So
All right. Well, King is searching in his battle site, and hmm,
so did Ty pass here? I didn't see Ty take an action.
I didn't either. So the 7 hits Mephisto.
We missed a sequence, or maybe they just messed
No,
up.
I think they misplayed, and look, that happens to the best of
Oh.
us. I think that Phil.
Well, the 7 gets
Oh,
thrown.
oh, aha! No, no, no. Tyler offensively master molded to punt the turn.
I see. Yep.
So it was we couldn't detect that without audio. So it was teamwork, 6 strength hit. Tyler offensively master molds to get Keffer to play his card, which I'm not sure if I love that decision, being that the card that was remaining was the 7 any. Maybe he was trying to put the decision, that tension back on Phil of do I have it? I guess it does put Beast at 13 points of damage. No, 16 points of damage and 2 colors.
And so this ends up exactly where I think Ty doesn't want to be, but at the same time, so Ty gets that setup on B, so he's very close to being KO'd. But he gets a couple hits on Mephisto, and the real danger here is getting that multi-power hit on Grunge. So I think we'll see Tyler pull his Siege Perilous from his Odin's Vault. Siege Perilous takes an intellect to play. If it gets in play, then at the beginning of the following battle, he can discard cards from his deck to heal a hit off a character, which is really what he wants to be doing with that. So he's gonna
Now,
interesting. So
which event is that, Joe?
that is no energy power cards may be played. But the interesting thing here is there's a little bit of a sequencing that was off there. So Ty needs to decide before events are played, but after the draw phase. So the way it normally works is Phil should have declared in the draw phase, I have an event. Put it on the table face down. Then Ty needs to decide, am I taking an event? Or am I taking an artifact here? Before he knows what the event is going to be. Where he knew that 6 energy was going to be a dead card, it made the decision a lot easier to get the Siege Perilous.
That's correct. Yeah.
But this is also a situation where, as the game expands and these new mechanics are becoming more viable, there's timings in the game that we've all but ignored because there were no cards that really interacted with them in any way. Now that the Odin's Vault allows you to get an artifact at that specific timing, these ways that you resolve these events actually matter now. So that is out there. So, Phil's got to be pretty happy about the place that puts him in.
Yeah.
It's almost interesting. Tyler has so many cards in his deck that don't generate venture. He's got the Siege Perilous placed. He's got that card from Mephisto allows him to play another character's specials. Great card, but again, no venture. He can't play that 6 energy, but I almost wonder if placing it on Grunge and just having it for a future battle would have been worth it, even though it's a dead card.
It's tough to know because anytime you place a power card, there's always some odds, unless it's
Oh,
later in the
wow.
game, that it could. Oh, oof. There's always odds that that power card could triplicate. But sorry, back to the placement that's happening. The clobbering time on thing.
After he placed the 11, the Iron Fist, and the clobbering time, Ty's hands obscuring it again. He does have the 9 or less on Sable, and if you missed it, he did place the little rogue on the home base, which would shut down Keffer's sight. But Keffer's down to only now 2 or 3 cards in hand. We can see that he has at least one activator, but it'll be interesting to see if Ty chooses to try to fire off that little rogue early to see if it does damage, or if he's got a different strategy for what he's going to pace himself out. But staring down the barrel, that 10 is a kill shot, that 11 is a kill shot. He's got to have a card off his battle site, and goes back to the very first play of the game. You know, sometimes you don't think much about using those battle site cards, but Phil saw him use that full of void, and you got to know a player as good as Phil Keffer is going to be completely calculating. Well, that's one. We've seen his no fighting, we've seen his full of void. Really, the only thing left on that battle site is going to be a beast activator with either the negate or the no only universe. He could have a negate for the X babies, but the amount of cards left in Tyler's deck that's going to block either of those cards is drastically dwindling. So it looks like Phil goes 2. It looks like Ty goes back with 1. Ty's doing a little shuffle with his cards like he might just run, and that's exactly what Ty does.
It's tough to run with that many activators in hand, but I also think he made the right decision here where he needs to regroup and, like you said, get some cards that generate venture and be in a better position to kind of keep pace with what Phil's doing. Because Phil right now is absolutely clicking in terms of the heat he has placed.
It's true, but and this is again, these guys are better. I would say they're better players than me for sure. You do a lot more consistently top aiding than I do, but I feel like I would almost stay in there, defend the first hit, try to get that Siege Perilous out on Grunge so I could remove that multi 3. I mean, that's as much as there's damage on Mephisto, the only reason I wouldn't do that is if I'm worried he's going to fire the 10, then fire the 11, and I can't block the second one. And that may have been the case. He might not have had 2 activators that could defend, and he just couldn't risk losing them. But getting that Siege Perilous out is such an important thing in the game right now.
Now, this is just talking strategy. I think what part of this game's outcome may come down to is I think Tyler bet 2 that first hand on card advantage and wanting to get the artifacts out. I personally find so far in my experience with Odin's Vault that I'd rather bet one hand one and be able to get the artifact out. And if I win, I do keep initiative and I get one mission. But if for some reason there's a moment I need to leave, I can leave without having lost 2 missions. And I just feel like because Tyler ventured those 2 missions and then that really well timed DZ came from Keffer's battle site, that he's just gotten in a position he didn't really want to be in, right? You laid it out the case. That 3 multi on Grunge is really a dagger. And having 13 points of damage on Mephisto with those 2 1 protects placed to Thing in Heroes for Hire, this is just a real challenging position to dig out of. And that's why I guess I do agree with the retreat in Battle 2, just because I think you need to regroup and figure out how to make a stand. But it's going to be tough. He has some work cut out for him.
Now he did get the Danger Seeker, which is great. It does require all attacks to be made against Grunge at -2. It would take those 10 and 11s down to where they're able to be avoided by the 9 or less
Yeah.
on Silver Sable. So he does want to get that out. He does have they both have the teamwork placed on Silver Sable, which is playable. He's still got that little rogue that he can fire off to shut down the battle site. So Ty's certainly got some options here, but Ty, with the number of onslaught activators in the deck and the Mephisto 1 per deck, the fact that he hasn't gotten the defensive way to start shifting those hits is it's been a little bit bad luck for him going into this final match.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think hopefully his patience is paid off by the
yeah,
fact that Danger Seeker is populated now, but he still needs a little more help to turn the tide.
for sure. But I do love the idea of getting that Danger Seeker out, and then maybe Keffer's not even doing the math in his head
Yeah.
that it's at -2 and the 9 or less will avoid it.
I know we had this debate at the B&Bs about the value of negative bonuses versus positive bonuses, but I guess just to reignite that debate, I do like negative bonuses for the ability to bring down attacks defensively, whereas I do think the bonuses are much better offensively. And there's obviously a lot more offense in the game than defense, so I do think that means +2 to all actions are superior. But I think this -2 right here for Grunge, that Danger Seeker, is really going to help mitigate at least one of those one per decks that were really a problem.
So we've got it placed out here. It looks like the bet has happened. I see what looks to be two more from Phil Keffer. Ty's got his missions on the other side of the board, so I'm having a little bit of a hard time seeing what he has. But Ty definitely looks like he's in a position where he's got a little more on the bottom. Phil's only got 3 cards in hand, so again, Ty's probably waiting for the perfect time to play that little rogue. But you're in a position where Beast has got to negate. The last thing you want to see is for Phil to have his Scarlet Witch activator to make you discard the Danger Seeker, or to have you get the Danger Seeker out and have him just be able to double negate if you have the negate to defend. Meaning Beast tries to negate it, you play the X Baby's negate to defend, and then he has another negate from hand, and he can just again shut down your entire strategy. But what we're seeing here is Phil really wants to get that. He wants to put as much pressure on Mephisto as possible. He knows
Oof.
Mephisto is the king to this deck, so
Oh,
that
he does
puts
take that. Ooh,
he
it's a
puts him within 1 point of cumulative KO. He
7
follows up with
strength.
a 6. Yeah, comes through as a 7 to block. He does have the 9 or less still on Silver Sable. We might see him have to use it here.
Looks like he's going for an activator onslaught. Oh, he's doing the shift to X babies. Okay.
So he's going to put the cannon fodder on X babies. That is not what he wants to be doing, but maybe he's thinking this is the only way he can stem the tide. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is if he plays Danger Seeker offensively, and gets it in play, which he most likely won't. Beast will most likely negate it, but Danger Seeker would still work in this situation. Cannon Fodder would say any hits on Mephisto are automatically moved to X babies, but Danger Seeker would say you can't even attack Mephisto, you have to attack Grunge. So this negate place to Beast is really ruining his entire strategy, and
Yeah.
that's why you've seen him just gunning full board trying to get rid of Beast so he can get rid of that negate.
Now, in terms of the decision to cannon fodder X babies, I would have to think part of that is that Grunge has the multi power, and so his inherent is currently basically turned off, and that hurts how strong of a venture sync Grunge is. So at that point, X babies inherent kind of being cleaner, not having any hits, also just might be a safer bet for accumulating damage and then doing a tuck.
For
And that
sure.
might be the way that Tyler gets back in this if he's able to.
And I would go back to, I know I've been harping on it, but he's choosing to kind of offensively throw cards here to try to take out Beast. I would have put the Siege Perilous in play that turn. Just get it over on Grunge, deal with the fire back, and then if you have to go to one more hand, you can get that card off Grunge, and then if you get your Mephisto 1 per deck, you're setting it up still.
Yeah, so I think Keffer must be asking a question here of Tyler about the interaction
I'm guessing
of
he's
all these
asking
cards.
maybe if Danger Seeker is either that interaction we just talked about or if it's defensive. So Danger Seeker, like the Mole Man card, has to be played offensively, and that could be what he's confirming. So Tyler, I'm guessing, can't fire those teamworks off. I'm kind of surprised. That's sort of the bread and butter to pressure the Beast. It takes Beast acrobatics out of the calculation. And
Right.
a 6 is exactly what he needs to kill. Okay, so Beast is going to offensively negate the cannon fodder. So I would say at this point, he almost certainly has another negate in hand. He's trying to bait Ty into playing that Danger Seeker, which he's going to
Yes.
defensively negate. So
That's what he's
Ty's
gonna
try
do.
to put it in play. And
And
we
he yeah.
see a card, and he reaches for the battle site, which will be
Ah,
the Scarlet Witch activator with the negate.
now that's a tough one because I'm not sure what better position Tyler could have put himself in. except to maybe fold there. That's one of those like
I mean, I
monster
think what
field.
he needs to do there is he needs to play the little rogue. He needs to play the little rogue to guarantee that if he has that negate, he can't use it after the little rogue's in play.
Yeah. That just feels like a situation where, I mean, you called it. You have to think that Phil has the second negate from the battle site there.
He's
And
not a player as good as Phil with 4 cards in his hand is not using his offensive negate for a cannon fodder when he can still target Grunge as a venture sink. He's not doing that unless he knows that he has the defense for the danger seeker.
now, again, I can't see what's in Tyler's hand. What are the activators? Right now, the venture is 12-0 in favor of Phil. Phil has a lot of venture placed. He has the 10, the 11, and the 4. That's 24 right there, plus 7 on the home base. That's 31 venture, and he has a 12 lead. I'm not sure how Tyler can make up the venture in this battle.
He does have the 7 on X Babies. It's really more of a total overall card. I don't think he's used his 9 or less where Phil has, but
Yeah.
it's really, does he have the defense for those big attacks? That's the big fear here is, can he deal with a 10 or an 11? Um, and he's also, even that JW3 is a cumulative KO on Mephisto, so he has to have a power card to defend that. Ty's in a tough spot, and it's important to note Ty is playing exceptionally well, and Ty has piloted this deck expertly all day. This is not a straightforward deck to play. It's complicated. It's not just vanilla attacks and defenses, and
Yes.
Ty has fought through, again, one of the toughest fields of any tournament we've ever had to meet Phil, arguably the best player of all time in the finals. But Phil's Ty gives him a chance. Phil's finally going to launch that clobbering time. Oh,
Yeah. I just think, first off, Tyler's a multi-time champion and has also done very well with this deck multiple times now. So, like, hats off to him. This is a challenging battle to try to win, even using the little rogue here.
I think that might be a little too little rogue late here.
Just he's down by 22 venture at this moment in the battle, with 16 of it can't be tucked. So I'm not sure how he can recover on the venture. I think he must have just thought,
Oof. And then a
yeah,
Stars and Garters to add insult to injury here.
yeah,
And at this point, you notice too, Phil's not even using his placed cards. Phil could have played that ally and pressured Grunge or the X Babies before he put that out. He at this point is just leaning on that venture advantage that he has, and just, I think, hoping he's going to have those 4 placed cards in what is going to be a bet 2 for the win situation next hand.
Now, interesting that Tyler played the teamwork and was able to play it and didn't choose to play it earlier.
Interesting. So he is making a follow up using that special to copy the 3 multi.
So if he was able to do that earlier, I really believe he should have done that
Well,
in
what
one
he
of the
might have
earlier
been waiting
days.
for, though, is he might have been hoping that the 10 or the 11 came on Grunge, which would turn that card into a 10 or 11 to fire back with.
Interesting.
Keep in mind, he thought he was going to be able to danger seek here and make one of those hits go to Grunge.
Right. So he did get Beast here. I
But he
think it's a little too late for it to have the impact that he needed in order to swing this battle his direction.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen the 9 yet, so he at least gets out from under the Beast 9, but we've seen 2 negates. We've seen a Stars and Garters. I don't know if Phil's the kind of guy that's running an acrobatics main deck. I can't remember from my other games. I do, but I don't know if he does.
Right.
Phil's got very specific calculations on cards that may or may not be playable in a given battle. And I know he hates to have a single card that's a dead card for even one battle.
Right. We have the ally here.
So this will have to be a card from Thing. Probably the 4. What else would it be that could follow that up? So probably a 4 fighting making or 4
Strength.
Strength. I almost said brute force. So there's the 4 strength. Thing can make an additional attack.
Let's see what.
So he
does.
lets it hit, and then he fires back with the little Colossus. Now this starts to get him a little bit back into it as from a venture perspective. I mean, he's only got 1 card in hand. Phil has still got a ton of stuff placed. It's not for the win. And this is the finals. Just if for anybody who doesn't know, the finals are untimed. So Ty has to win the game. He can't. There's not going to be a timeout where being ahead would matter. Now, Phil hasn't touched his armory yet either, so don't forget, Phil's got access to a lot of things in the Dracula's armory.
So he takes that hit, but the venture is
26 to 13 essentially right now. So Phil has exactly double the venture. Phil's got 7 more represented on his home base to 7 more represented on the X babies. So he's got 1 more card in hand. He's got an 11 place too. So he's almost certainly going to win the venture. The question is, what is Ty's strategy here? Is he trying to eat up as much as he can of Phil's cards? Probably.
There's a chance he wants to get Heroes for Hire painted in a way where maybe he can sneak a kill later.
Yeah.
You're trying to really figure out a contingency plan against what's happened.
Yeah, the main thing that we're looking for right here is he's going to want to get that Infinity Gauntlet off his Odin's Vault and get that in play on a hero. The Infinity Gauntlet will let him at the beginning of the battle, he can discard a number of cards in order to bring a character back to life.
Now he doesn't have that placed yet, does he?
He has it still. He still has that in the Serpent Crown on his Odin's Vault.
Unfortunately, he won't be able to activate that next battle.
No, he'll have to. He will have to survive with a max 5 character, a max 6 character, and stable generously as a max 5 if you count the 5 multi, but probably is only going to have 4 or less power cards. So he's going to have to survive a pretty brutal hand where the king is probably going to be going for the win for the Infinity Gauntlet to even be a factor.
Now this is interesting because Tyler has 1 card left in hand. I would
assume. So Phil does decide to use the 11.
Yeah. So that makes. Oh no.
Oh, it's not for the KO because the 6 is the power card. He does not have the 3rd power type.
Oh.
So he throws the 11. Maybe he thought it was for the kill, but it definitely was not for the kill. So X Babies is painted up. Heroes for Hire's got a decent amount of damage, but it's going to be pretty. Let's see. Maybe Ty gets lucky here. He does have the any power teamwork. That's a good thing to see.
Now, the Sable 9 or less avoid here does protect babies from some of the issues it might have. And the advantage that Phil carried into this battle is just the Cheshire Cat. So he's basically +4 for venture, and then we'll see how the duplication goes. But this is
So it looks like Ty only seems to drop a 7 and a 9 or less. They're a little out of sequence here, but people aren't super sticklers about it. He does discard both of those and then takes the Infinity Gauntlet.
If there's a way that he can survive this battle, he has a great path forward in terms of being able to resurrect characters if his deck is big enough to burn a little more cards out of it. It'll be interesting to see what Keffer's deck does here in a game point scenario. Tyler plays 2 cards there. I'm thinking that Keffer said he was not placing and is going for the win.
Which he did. He's got both. He's got 2 in the middle, so Ty's going to go 2.
Unfortunately, that might mean that teamwork's not playable.
Well, this is a big hand here, so we'll see. Let's see if Ty can pull it off. This is a Phil Keffer is betting for a tournament win here. So if he wins this hand, he will win the entire tournament. He's going to play a JW against Grunge. Grunge will need power cards to defend that. Oh, the 3 hits, and that makes the
Oh,
8 an auto kill. And
yeah.
again, that multi-power hit that he got on early, so Kepler took that gamble early to Ty could have killed Beast had he had an energy icon instead of that 7 any power. And Phil got lucky. The Beast didn't die, but either way, that multi-power hit on Grunge early just kept coming back to haunt Tyler this entire game.
Yeah. Uh, Phil, I said that you wouldn't make that risk. I was wrong. I apologize. You are the greatest. But no,
uh,
no. In honesty, that was really a great play, and that was a very interesting hand one that really just set the table for the whole match.
And I think this is one of the things that's great for new players to understand is, playing a 3 multi, like I'm sure Phil was considering throwing the 3 on Mephisto, seeing if he could take out Mephisto even earlier, because that would have put a 7, a 6, and a 3 multi. That would have put Mephisto where any 4 kills him. And so the 5 from Heroes, if this hits, he's going to get to strip a hit off. So Heroes will be even further away from being killed. It
Yeah.
hits.
Ooh,
He's probably going to remove this 6, so there's no colors anymore on Heroes.
right.
But it shows you so what I was saying for new players is, this really shows how much those little decisions matter. He could have tried to pressure Mephisto more, but he said, "I know Ty's deck. I had the advantage of playing it round 1. Tyler beat him with it round 1, and he said, "I realize how important staying in, risking a character death and just getting that 3 on Grunge was."
Now I will say,
Hold on, we lost the feed here for a second. Can we
while the
Ronald?
feed's coming
Yep.
back,
Sorry, there we go. So what were you going
let
to
me
say, Dave?
say no, just that Tyler's in a tough position there to play a top player twice in the same tournament with a deck that has a trick. I ran into a similar situation in the OKC shootout. I played Josh, who's a fantastic player. I think round 1 and took him to the woodshed, and then facing him in the championship is just such a tougher match. Trying to scale that mountain 2 times, and your opponent has the knowledge of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it lets him make a lot more informed decisions. You've said it a lot, but diagnosing on the spot is a huge skill in collectible card games. And with the new cards being included, that's something we've brought back to the game. So ties down to very few cards. It looked like Phil was making a reach for his Dracula's Armory, so we may see him offensively throw a big power card attack here. Oh, he actually opts not to do it. So he throws it as a 6, but that's all it takes. So Silver Sable's going to die. He can't come back and get the venture. And that is the tournament. The handshake goes out. What an interesting last match. I'm really going to look forward to going back and watching round 1 versus the finals and
Yes.
see what the differences are between 2 games by, like you said, 2 of the absolute best players in the game.
Multi-time champions, both fantastic players in their own right. Tyler, hats off to you for running such a creative deck. I definitely want to go back and watch round 1, their first matchup myself. And I've had this debate with my brother-in-law Greg Costa about what makes the best overpower player. And I think creative deck building is very important to me. It's easy to run some of these more simple Cadillac-ish decks and just have the deck be played for you, but to be able to make a final with a deck that's so deft and so complicated and nuanced as this Mephisto Grunge combo, and take the king to the limit, and really, but for this one decision in round 1, I think would have been a different match altogether. And then hats off to the king for diagnosing it round 2.
And I really want to say too, to the healthiness of the meta that we're currently in, where throughout the course of the day, if we would have been recording these matches 5 years ago, it was 90% energy decks. Spawn Strange were going to be on almost every deck that you saw, and you'd get players like myself or you, Dave, or Carl was a big one that we just got tired of it, and we always tried to make the uphill battle. But even with the very small amount of cards and just a couple of rules tweaks, we were basically able to ban Dow, introduce a few home bases that you can use as strategies and a few cards, and you've seen the entire environment open up to where you've got Thing on the front line of a deck that just won the finals. And that might not, to if you're kind of just coming back to the game now, that might not seem crazy because Thing was a huge character in the original set in 1995. But I mean, you haven't seen Thing realistically on a deck other than in the reserve spot in John Lewis's Heroes for Hire decks. To have him on the front line is unprecedented. And we saw throughout the course of this day, I think we saw 7 decks that had Juggernaut on the front line. So the amount of strength decks that we saw were probably almost even to the amount of energy decks. So just seeing huge metas like this that shift is it's just such a exciting time for Overpower, and it's such a refreshing thing to see. I'm really excited about Seattle.
Very excited about Seattle. I'll be interested to see what Phil brings, assuming he can attend. He
So
still has two
Phil has
decks.
told me he and Marcel are attending every event this year. That was their deal for Team Elite. So they will be there. Phil is currently in first for Player of the Year, but he is not out of the running. Marcel is actually in the running too, who has made either top 8 or top 4 every event. So he's still in the running. I think there's a few other players, but more players are coming out of the woodwork. I think Tyler's actually going to travel now for it. I think Corey and Doug and maybe Phil Miller are coming. You and I are going. A lot of the Seattle guys are going. Larry's going. I mean, I think we're going to see easily a 25-person Seattle event.
It's going to be a very interesting field, diverse mechanics. Again, great to see a strength versus an intellect energy deck in this final. Two really creative decks. I will be interested to see what Phil does because he's played Heroes multiple times with Beast, and he's used a shifting slot of Juggernaut to Thing. So maybe he'll stick with the same formula. What strength character will we see next? Or will it be an energy draw deck? What
We
will
may
Phil
even
play?
see my boy Neymar make an appearance. I know Phil wants to also lean into playing different characters because that gains him more points for the Player of the Year chase, which I know was partially why he switched to Thing instead of Juggernaut. So I think we'll definitely see him. He definitely seems this season like he's on a Dracula's Armory kick, and I see why. It's a fantastic home base. I think you'll see him make a few changes, but probably stick with strength. But let's not count out newcomers either. We've had Joe Peters making appearances now from the Seattle area in Oklahoma and at this tournament,
Have it,
and he's
Joe.
and he's made the top 8 both times with a very creative deck. We've had the Seattle group of Doug Taylor and some of his players. They're one of our playtest groups for Lazarus Games. So they've been playtesting the new set. So they're certainly getting a lot of practice in, and I think we're going to see a lot of the new players making a big splash at this event as well. I don't think this will be generally when there's a new area. There's a lot of players who have to get brush the rust off. And I think we'll see that to some level, but I think we'll see a lot of it a lot more polished than a new tournament in a new area usually is. So I'm expecting to see a lot of competition, and I'm super excited to tweak my intellect deck and bring it there and see if I can kind of dodge and weave through the meta. Dave, any insight? Last thing before we go, are you going to replay the mill deck?
I'm pretty sure. I have another version I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not enough time to get it ready, but it definitely played well. A little glitch against Ricky. Ricky, you got me. But looking forward to this really interesting meta, whether I play the mill or not. There's no more free lunches in Overpower. Fantastic players, fantastic deck diversity, a loving community, just an exciting time to be a player and a fan. So can't wait till Seattle.
Absolutely. So, guys, that is the Overpower Cup. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Heroes and Games for being fantastic hosts. If you guys are in Columbus, stop by the Columbus Convention Center and please check out Heroes and Games. I plugged them earlier, but they have a amazing selection of comics. They have an amazing selection of games, role-playing games, tabletop games, hero clicks, card games. I don't know if it's at the shop every day, but Doug Sims certainly has a very good selection of Overpower that he puts up in the case for sale during the events. Um, Yeah, guys, check and please, if you're in the Seattle area or you have a way to get to Seattle, we're gonna have a great tournament there coming up at the end of the month of September, and Battle for Boston will be sometime in November. So we're gonna have a lot of events close together to finish up this season. We can't wait to bring it to you. Thanks so much for supporting us.
Thanks, everybody.